I don't see that.
Right now, what you're seeing right now, so let's go to that one. So that's where we come back to this global minimum tax. What you're seeing is Europe is after those global technologies to tax them heavier because, yes, we're better. I mean, we're first, we're better. We own that. We literally own that market worldwide. Now, we're not better in things like semiconductors. Taiwan owns that market. We're trying to get that over here. My backyard in Phoenix, we got 2 big plants going on. One, we're trying to bring those Taiwanese semiconductors over here, which I think is actually, I liked the semiconductor bill because of that. But the question, and so what other countries are doing is that they're actually, I think what's missing in the tariff discussion, and I'm not a huge tariff fan per se, what's missing in the tariff discussion is what other countries are doing. And so I think where you have to be able to say, well, wait a minute, you can't do this with impunity. We are not going to allow you to ship your cheap goods to the US with impunity and then tax our goods with impunity so that we can't export those goods, which is exactly what Europe in particular is trying to do with the technology.
Why wouldn't those, if we think that taxes are bad, if we think that taxes are bad in the United States, if you're telling me that they disincentivize investment and they disincentivize all these other things, why is it that taxes are good when other countries use them against us?
I don't think taxes are, I actually don't think our current tax rates, I actually think our current tax rates are pretty appropriate. I don't want to see them increased significantly.
Which tariffs would do for everyththing, right?
Which I think, because there's, again, what we were talking about.
Well, sure, but I'm curious, what is the explanation? What is the explanation for it? Because it feels like when we talk about taxes in the U.S., it's like taxes are bad. We don't want to, tax this stuff because it discourages all these horrible things, and we don't want the government using the money. But then when it comes to other countries, and it's like they put huge VATs on our stuff, and they put massive, taxations on all of our imports. Why is it that taxes are good for those countries and it helps them, but it
doesn't help them. You said earlier, our inflation rate is lower and our production is higher than every other country in the world. That's part of the reason. If you look at Germany, Germany has a 70% tax rate. 70%.
Isn't that the point that tariffs might not be a good thing across the board?
Well, look, I think there are strong arguments because I spent a lot of time with my friends at the Tax Foundation, and they really hate tariffs, okay? They really do. My challenge is I don't like this idea that that we pay taxes to other countries and don't expect them to pay taxes to us.
Yep.
Wait. What do you mean
it's a competitive issue?
Wait. How do we pay taxes to other countries if there's a VAT and we said that most of the cost is passed on to the consumer? Aren't they just making their own citizens pay the taxes?
Well, yeah, but their citizens are paying those taxes, but some of it, as you said, some of it is passed on to us. The producer is going to pay some of the tax.
Well, it makes us less competitive.
The tougher part is it makes us less competitive. Because, would you disagree that...
That's why Trump wants the tariffs in general.
The cost of production in the U.S., the reason we import so much is the cost of production in the U.S., as a general rule, is higher than the cost of production in a lot of other countries. That's why we buy clothing from Vietnam. It's cheaper to buy clothing from Vietnam than it is to buy clothing made in the U.S.
Yeah, but it also frees up our citizens to, one, have a higher standard of living, and two, buy other things, right? Like if I want to buy a new instrument for my kid at a local shop that produces, high quality trumpets, if I can go to Walmart and buy cheap clothes, I can buy like a custom made U.S. instrument at home. If all of a sudden we bring all our manufacturing back and now I have to buy, $50 for a pair of children's T-shirts or whatever because they're all made at home, I feel like there's an opportunity cost that's missing. It's almost like a broken Windows fallacy.
I actually agree with that. I think that you have I would not want to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. at any cost.
Which is what the tariffs are designed to do, right? So I feel like it just hurts us in every single way.
What I'd like to see is the investment incentive so that, for example, take Musk and Tesla's, okay? Not a lot of people to make a Tesla. It's all robotics, right? And so it's innovation, it's technology. So what you want to see is, rather than having it cheap because it's cheap labor and they're in sweatshops in Vietnam and Indonesia, you want it cheap because the technology's good. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see that's why it becomes cheap, not because of cheap labor.
Sure, but I mean, at the end of the day, these are all market forces competing with each other, right? Like, at some point, machines are going to outperform humans. It just depends on how low the wages can be. But I mean, like there's weird moral values we put on that too. Like, we say, like, well, we don't want, like, there to be sweatshops in other countries. Well, what if you take away the sweatshops and then they go to, like, subsistence farming, right? Like, sweatshops aren't great in the U.S., of course, and in a lot of countries, sure, but it might be like a country's path towards industrialization and middle-class wages eventually. Like, there are roads and steps, and the country is free to negotiate as well, right? It's just one thing that I noticed when we talk about a lot of, like, tax and econ policy is that for some reason, other countries are doing things that somehow are so good for them and they're screwing us over. But then if we were to do those things, if they become bad for us, and it makes me wonder. Like, I think that deportation and tariffs, these are both great examples of this. People will say, you know, in one breath, they'll say Mexico has this unfair advantage because they have so much cheap labor. They're killing us in manufacturing. We can't allow this to happen. And then in the next breath, they'll say, we need to deport all these guys back to Mexico. And it's like, well, hold on. If they're killing us in manufacturing because of all their workers, why don't we just let them fucking come up here and then make it in the US? Like, wouldn't that be better? Like, if we really think that that's, like, killing us, why not just, like, eat all their workers and have them come up here and, you know, give them a path to citizenship and then make it here, right? Wouldn't that be better?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a supply side argument.
Yeah. So I guess when I look at, like, the people that support, like, the Trump tariffs they're just so bad. And, like, if you want to subsidize your economy and you want to make things cheap as hell, and you know, you want to do that to the detriment of your own economy, because I think in a lot of ways subsidies can be good and subsidies can be really bad. I think we both agree that there are good subsidies, bad subsidies. If you want to subsidize the craziest stuff out of your economy and then we get to, you know, import that, I mean, we're just, like, gaining off of your crazy tax planning. And again, there's pros and cons to everything, but man, a 20% tariff across the board, that would just, like, you agree, that would be, like, devastating to the U.S. economy, right? Like, that would be more devastating than any $6,000 child tax credit or whatever, right?
Well, certainly more devastating than $6,000 child tax credit, baby tax credit. You know what? What's interesting is Biden, the one thing that he only kept one thing of Trump's, and that was tariffs. It's the only thing he kept. I just find that interesting.
Well,
I'm not going to make comment on it, but he did.
I'll make a comment on it. The difficulty, I think, when it comes to tariffs is it's very easy for me to tariff somebody. I can look at somebody and go, 20% tariff, screw you. But obviously, they're going to retaliate, right? Okay, well, fine, 20% tariff, screw you. To levy a tariff is easy, but to bring it down, well, now I have to negotiate some kind of deal, because I can't just remove my tariff on you while you've tariffed me, because now I'm getting screwed, right? So I think it's one of the reasons why the tariff stayed around is because we're already engaged in kind of an awkward trade war thing going on with China, you know, geopolitically with Taiwan, economically, and trade-wise with chip manufacturing and everything. It's easy to levy a tariff. It's hard to take it down. So I'm not going to give Biden the same penalty for maintaining a tariff that Donald Trump laid on somebody, right? Yeah. And I think that, like, the CHIPS Act was better for bringing manufacturing here for semiconductor manufacturing than even just the tariffs, you know, from Trump himself.
I totally agree with that. I have another question for you. Mm-hmm. So Harris has proposed price controls.
Yeah, I was literally about
price controls on groceries, price controls on rent, lots of different price controls. Historically, that has not played well in other countries. What makes you think, or what makes even the Democrats think, that that's going to work here when it hasn't worked other places?
This is my favorite thing about the Democrats. I don't care what Kamala Harris says about price controls, because price controls are one of the most devastating ways that you can annihilate an economy. So I don't think that'll ever go through. I think that if Kamala said, we're going to do price controls, there would be 50 million people around her that would go, absolutely not. This is insane. Go out there and apologize and say you're not doing that shit. If Donald Trump says he's going to do 20% tariffs, you have to fall in line or he's going to annihilate your career. Right? I think that's the difference. So there are some things, you know, not to revisit it, but like the concept of unrealized capital gains taxes and wealth taxes, for a large number of reasons, these are almost inconceivably difficult to levy. It's how do you evaluate? It's very, very difficult. I'm not even really concerned about it. I just don't think that an unrealized capital gains tax is ever coming because of how difficult it would be to levy and how much pushback she would get because the Democratic Party is such a wide tent party. Look at what happened to Biden when he had a disastrous debate performance. The leftist media bullied him. He got bullied internally, and then people internally bullied him externally to make him leave.
Well, and you could say the same thing about Trump's proposal to not tax Social Security. It's frankly because that money actually goes back into the Social Security fund. The income tax on Social Security goes into the Social Security fund, and that would be untenable to pull that pull that money out.
But so
that's an example of, and Congress has to pass that. So I would say,
but the scary thing
well,
is,
a lot of these, Trump has made. I think some of Trump's tax proposals are not logical.
But the scary thing about some of Trump's stuff is that he can do a lot of it by executive action, which is the scary thing.
But he can taxes, tariffs, yes, taxes no.
Taxes probably not, but the tariffs yes, and the tariffs are one of the
taxes no.
Tariffs are one of the scariest things that he's talking about, though, right?
Tariffs yes, tariffs yes. Now, do you think that an executive action like tariffs is, I suspect you do, is particularly worse than just unconstitutionally just wiping out student loan debt?
No, I think unconstitutionally wiping out student loan debt would be atrocious.
Which is what Biden attempted several times.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I disagree.
He did. He was shut down by the courts.
Sure. So what you just said defeated the argument that you made, right? So the Constitution is what powers the legislature, the courts, and the executive. Biden, his statutory interpretation of the education bill that said that in times a president can forgive certain types of debt or whatever, he attempted the executive, their interpretation was, well, I can forgive this debt, and he tried it, and the Supreme Court said, we disagree with that interpretation, you can't, and then he said, oh, okay. I'll look and see what else I can do. I don't think that's violating the Constitution. The executive tried something that they thought that they had the statutory construction to do, and the court said, no, you don't have it. And then he
actually said, I know I know they're going to shut us down because I know this is not legal. I'm going to do it anyway because maybe I'll get away with it.
I don't know if that's exactly what he said.
Not exactly, but it's basically anyway.
I mean, if I was,
but you're right. You're right. You and I agree on one thing, and that is that anytime we can have balancing powers is a good thing.
Sure, but
okay?
if I was worried about stuff like that, not to be a one-trick pony, but I'd be way more worried about like Donald Trump trying to remain in office after he lost the election, because that was the thing they were trying to do unconstitutionally. They were advocating for breaking a law, the ECA under Pence, and Eastman himself said that not only can we break this law, there will be no checks and balances because the Supreme Court won't touch this because they'll invoke the political questions doctrine and they won't get involved. So we can just do this. That's arguably above the above the court and eliminating checks and balances. So
arguably, so you have it on both sides, which doesn't make either one right.
Well, hold on. That's not on both sides. It's absolutely what they tried to do on the Trump side, unequivocally, and they said as much. I don't believe Biden said, I'm going to go above the Constitution and I'm going to defy the Supreme Court and do all these things. Trump's side did say that.
Destiny, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're essentially saying price controls, bad idea, even unrealized capital gains, probably not going to happen. But you're saying that probably won't happen, whereas you're saying that Trump, if he gets elected, he can almost be a mob boss, do tariffs without any checks and balances, and he's way more likely to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to come off as like overly political, but like Trump, I'm going to sound weird. Trump operates like an authoritarian insofar as he wants to centralize a lot of power in the executive, not really the executive, the presidency. So Donald Trump will outfit himself with a lot of people that are willing to go really far with the things that he wants to do in terms of executive control, and he's got a court that's very favorable to him right now. So I'm worried about the types of things that Trump could do, because if you go against Trump, Trump will try to destroy your career. That's what he does, right? He attacks everybody that opposes him in the party. Whereas in the Democratic Party, you kind of have to play ball more with everybody in the party because it's a wider tent and you've got a wider constituency, and the party is just a little bit more alive. Where if today Kamala Harris said, "Screw the Democrat Party, I'm walking away," the Pelosi and everybody else were like, "Okay, I guess we're going to throw somebody else up in here." If Donald Trump said, "Screw the Republican Party, I'm running as an independent," the Republican Party loses 75% of their constituents. So that's a lot scarier to me. I feel like the potential for executive power overreach and abuse is a lot higher with Trump. That's my feeling.
Go ahead, Caleb.
Well, I mean, this is comes down to the big debate around Trump. I guess you said you didn't want to get super political, but I feel like it's bleeding into what is the reason you hate Trump so much, and can you boil that thesis down? Because we're talking about, I feel like we're talking and agree a lot on the same policies, but like you obviously hate Donald Trump. A lot of the people that agree with you around the tax side are voting Republican. So I just wonder what the disconnect is. And then obviously January 6th is like a huge talking point.
Yeah, I mean,
but then
I think
if you take a step back, like he was president for four years, and I don't understand why people think like it's just gonna be game over if he becomes president again. And and again, I know that this is not the first time you've heard that question, but that's just it seems like the liberals, their only talking point, it seems like Kamala's only talking point is Trump, horrible. And it seems it's just like that's like their only talking point. And it almost seems exhausting. So I guess that's just feedback on like and it might be working. I mean, I actually do believe that Trump lost the election because of Trump, not because of Biden. And so I like, it's one of those things where it's like I can see both sides. He's an exhausting person, but I also I'm not as afraid as that he's gonna like take over and like stay in office. Like those are the kind of things that maybe it's like they didn't move the needle for me, but it clearly moves the needle for half
It's an
America.
interesting point, because I get why they can move the needle for somebody. They certainly move the needle for my wife, who can't stand Donald Trump. Okay, but for me, I'm more afraid of the Democrats, because the Democrats want to eliminate the filibuster. They want to put term limits on the Supreme Court, basically reverse the majority in the Supreme Court on day one by doing their term limits that retroactive effect. Those types of things actually eliminate checks and balances. I like the filibuster because I like the idea that you've got that check and balance. You have to negotiate. If you have a 50+1 vote on everything, and you're going down a slippery slope when you go, okay, you did it once for the budget, now then you did it for federal judges, now you're going to do it for abortion, then you're going to do it for voting laws. Where does that stop?
Well, sure. I guess so. Like a question on
the filibuster goes away completely,
Sure,
meaning that you only have to have 50+1.
A question on if you don't like the elimination of the filibuster, what do you think was the most egregious elimination of the filibuster in U.S. history? It was when McConnell denied Barack Obama checks and balances, right? The presidential right granted in the Constitution to appoint and have his nomination
Supreme
heard.
Court judge.
Yeah. So
Yep.
if we're talking
He should not have done that. I agree. You should not have done that.
Well, but it's not just that he shouldn't have done it. That is the most egregious. If the Republicans right now could pass something with favor from Donald Trump, but in order to do so, they'd have to eliminate the filibuster. Do you really think that the filibuster would survive?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. There are Republican senators that absolutely would not vote. So remember, the only reason we still have the filibuster is because of Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Without those two, we wouldn't have the filibuster because the Democrats tried to get rid of it this term.
So I don't think that the filibuster would survive pressure from Donald Trump. I think there's ample evidence to show that the Republican Party will go along with basically anything Donald Trump says. And like right now, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that a Democrat president will ever get another Supreme Court justice if there is a majority in the Senate that are Republicans. Like, you have no reason to think that. If you're a Democrat and the Republicans have the Senate and a Supreme Court justice dies, there's no reason why you should think you're ever getting another Supreme Court justice, as long as the Republicans are 50+1 in the Senate. And I think if we're worried about things like checks and balances and the filibuster in the Supreme Court, that's a big issue. When you talk about term, who got rid of the filibuster on federal judges? The Democrats did that. The Republicans didn't do it. The Democrats voted that. Not the Republicans. The Republicans just took it to the logical next step and said, well, we're going to do it for Supreme Court justices too, because they're federal judges. So would I agree? Should we have a 60 vote requirement for
federal judges, yeah, I think that'd be great.
Sure. I mean, like, we can talk about the original the original attack on the filibuster, but again, it was because Republicans didn't want to nominate, or they didn't want to nominate any of the judges that were being put forth, right? Like, the issue is when Republicans try to bog down government and destroy it and try to make it. McConnell literally said, my goal is to make Obama a one-term president. People like Lindsey Graham literally said, well, listen, if they're in their last year, we're not going to give them another Supreme Court pick. That's fair. And then he reversed it on Trump, right? They have no values. They have no principles. The issue that I have with Donald Trump is I feel like he is fundamentally an un-American person. The way that he runs the presidency and the executive, and the way that he undermines every part of the U.S. government. When you look at his leadership as president, it was abhorrent in every single way, right? What is Trump trying to take credit for now? It's funnily enough, we talked earlier about how disastrous price controls are. What is one of the things that Donald Trump wants to take credit for is the price control on insulin. We talk about how bad government spending is. What is Donald Trump saying he wants to take credit for now? The ACA and pre-existing conditions, the thing that he tried to kill day one when he came into office. So I think that Donald Trump is just, he conducts himself in a way where he wants to centralize power in the executive. He wants to deny the outcome of the last election. He doesn't even agree that the last election results were real. He doesn't even agree in the 2016 election results. He says that 3 million illegals voted with no evidence. A guy like this who fights against all the institutions, tries to defy the peaceful transfer of power, constantly spreads lies and misinformation, attacks his opponents, is an ineffective leader. He can't get any major legislation passed. He can't get his own party to support him on stuff sometimes, and then commits crimes and goes before his Supreme Court that he's gotten 3 appointments on and says, I want criminal immunity because when I'm president, I can't commit crimes. That's just a person that I don't want anywhere near the presidency. That's insane to me. I think that that's a deeply un-American figure that I just don't want wielding the executive power.
I certainly understand that point of view. Going back to major legislation, though, 2017 Tax Act was the biggest piece of tax legislation, the most major change in tax law since 1986.
It was just deficit spending, though, right?
No, it wasn't just deficit spending. It wasn't.
It was.
Was there some? Yes.
No. It all what?
It wasn't. No, it wasn't. So you raised $1 trillion by eliminating the state and local tax deduction. By the way, the state and local tax deduction has no business being in the law. There is no reason to give a state and local tax deduction. There's no theoretical premise for giving a state and local tax deduction. That raised $1 trillion. So you can't say that it was all giveaways, because it wasn't. There was a lot of revenue raised, $2 trillion. You can look this up. $2 trillion came back to the U.S. because of the 2017 Act. That's $2 trillion we didn't have. Okay?
Sure, but like, what's the?
So yes, was there a deficit as a result of the 2017 law? Yes. However, the 2017 changes in the law, some of them were massively positive, including, by the way, the only part of that law that is permanent, which is the corporate tax rate.
Sure, but there's 2 things. One, the 10-year impact and then beyond of like those Trump tax cuts, I'm pretty sure far outweighs any money gained from SALT. And 2, doesn't Donald Trump say he wants to bring back state and local tax deductions?
Well, that's a dumb idea.
But he says he wants to bring it back. So even the part you're giving him credit for here, we can't even, right? We don't even know if it's going to stay.
I get it. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Why not?
Well, the same reason we're not getting an unrealized capital gains tax, because that's not going to happen. There's too many people that don't want it.
The difference is that when the Democrats say, Kamala, don't do this, Kamala says, okay, fuck, I won't do this. But when somebody says Donald Trump, don't do this, Donald Trump is out the next day saying, Kemp, that guy's a schmuck. I should have never supported him. We got some good guys in Congress that do good work for us, but not these guys, not these never Trumper, these evil, horrible Republicans.
So this is where, because I have friends in Congress. I have friends that are Republicans in Congress. I know them personally. They do have they do have a backbone. I disagree that the Republicans, there's nobody with a backbone.
To be fair, and I would I would talk to any of these people. There are no invertebrates that are more spineless than the Republicans in the House. I'm sorry, no offense to your friend. If any of them want to argue with it, I would love to argue with any of them, but absolutely not. There is no backbone in the Republican Party, in the lawmaking body. Unless you're ready to retire, you're never standing up to Donald Trump because it's the end of your career. He'll primary you, literally. He does it. He'll primary you.
What's your thoughts on
people
Thomas
consider
Massie?
McCarthy a rhino now. McCarthy, a rhino. They couldn't even hold on to their speaker seat, a historic event in the United States where the majority party loses their speaker seat, and they're begging the Democrats, can you guys help us maintain our majority seat here? Like that's unbelievable. That's ungovernable. That's crazy.
Destiny, what's your thoughts on Thomas Massey? He seems like he has a backbone and doesn't just get in line.
I don't know enough about him, unless yeah, you can give me information about him, but I don't know enough about him. But what's he done to resist any of Trump's?
He doesn't support Israel when it comes to the wars, and he's very big on cutting spending, and he doesn't even get in line with a lot of the Republican agendas, and so that's just an example of someone who's doesn't necessarily make friends on either side. But I would agree with you that there are majority.
One of the challenges I have with the Democrats is that we had two Democrats, one sort of an independent, my own Kirsten Sinema, Arizona's Kirsten Sinema. We had two Democrats who would stand up. I don't know. Do we have Democrats who will stand up to? And I'm not saying Harris. I say whoever is running things, because I don't for a second believe Harris is in charge there. But do we have Democrats who will stand up to the Democratic establishment?
I mean, the president is literally not running for re-election as an incumbent. That's a pretty big. Right. He was. There was a coup there. That's right. So he was kicked out. That's right. That's the Democratic establishment that did that. Well, let's say that I grant you that. You just asked me, did the Democrats ever stand up to their leadership? And then you said there was a coup. I mean, what more? How could you stand up to your leadership more than by having a coup, right?
You're suggesting Biden was their leader, and I don't believe that.
Well, then it wasn't a coup then, right? It was just
For a second. So what I'm asking is, because this is important when it comes to things like the filibuster and things like these big changes that the Democrats want to make. We had two. We had Sinema and Manchin. Are there others, do you think, that will stand up to the Democratic establishment to give us some checks and balances? I think there are in the Republicans. That I realize I'm. You probably don't agree with me on that.
Let me ask you this:
my question is, who would you point to in the Democratic Party that is going to stand up to the Democratic establishment?
I mean, literally anybody. One of the most popular Democrats, made a name for themselves fighting other establishment Democrats. We watched AOC and Pelosi, wage war against each other for years. We saw Biden, being forced to step down. We've seen liberal media attacking, the Democrats.
This is all from the Democratic establishment.
What?
But what are your thoughts on Matt Gaetz and the craziness that went? I mean, that's never happened.
He's a complete.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is like it's not like all the Republicans get in line, and you know what I'm saying.
The Republicans. I mean, there were 11 Republicans.
I think we all agree the Republicans are a mess. I think the Republicans are a mess.
There were 11 Republicans that were willing to go along with Donald Trump in trying to coup the government on January 6th, right? He found people to sponsor the J6 objections to the certification of the vote, right? This is insane. There are people that they didn't vote for his impeachment for partisan reasons in the Senate. They didn't convict for it. Just, I don't know. That's just wild to me.
Destiny, do you believe that the Supreme Court needs to be either packed or termed out? And what's your thoughts on the filibuster?
I have never. People don't like me for this. I think the filibuster is okay. I think that having 60 vote majorities on passing major legislation, I think that's fine. I think it's good to have some bipartisanship. Now, you need another party to govern with, and right now we don't have one in the United States, unfortunately. But when it comes to the Supreme Court, I've never heard a good argument against term limits. The Supreme Court, as we have it right now, which is like the wacky democracy casino, where every 4 years you get a president who might nominate anywhere from 0 to 4 Supreme Court justices, is absolutely fucking wild. I have never in my life heard a good argument against terming it so that like every president is guaranteed one pick or something like that. I think that would be a much better system, a more democratic system, a more checks and balances system, a more fair system. And the only reason I can see somebody opposing it is because they like the composition of the court right now, basically.
I would be curious what you think about term limits for Congress, because my thought is to Congress who says we want term limits on Supreme Court, you first.
Congress is voted in every 2 years or every 6 years, right?
They have no term limits.
Yeah, but they have to win re-election. The Supreme Court justice, a Supreme Court justice can get on the bench.
Wait. I understand that. However, because they don't have term limits, are you kidding? Why would you ever vote out somebody with seniority in your party. That's ridiculous. You would lose the seniority unless everybody has to be voted out for seniority.
I don't understand what you're saying. People get voted out from parties in ways that are catastrophic.
If you had no. Why would you ever vote? I mean, you're complaining about Mitch McConnell. I get your complaints. Okay. Now, why would anybody vote out Mitch McConnell, who has that much power because of his seniority, if instead you're going to give it to Chuck Schumer, who has all of that because he gets to stay in longer? Why would you put in a rookie senator when you've got an established power broker?
That's exactly where AOC came from. AOC primaried one of the most powerful, like the person who was supposed to be the runner-up leader to Pelosi. AOC primaried that person as like a 15-year-old, and she kicked him out of Congress, right? Like,
well, I would tell you that's the exception that proves the rule. I would say it's just an exception. That's not the norm. I'm just asking what you think. Why not have term limits for congressmen and for
I'm just saying it's okay to have like powerful people in Congress. Congress is what?
Interesting.
Congress is a big body. Like 3 or 4 or 5 Congress people, right? What is it? 438 House members, right? And then 100 in the Senate, right?
100 in the Senate.
Yeah. If you've got a few people in Congress or a few people in the Senate, that's one thing. But if you've got 3 Supreme Court justices, 435, sorry. If you've got 3 Supreme Court justices who are willing to go in a certain way, and you can't vote them out. There's no ethics guidelines. There's no checks and balance. I guess you could pass a constitutional amendment, but that's a much scarier situation, I think. And it's something that's because what are the checks and balances on the Supreme Court?
I think this is a really interesting conversation. I do want to take this back to the tax and economy. And let's talk about what Kamala and Trump seem to agree on, which is no tax on tips. I personally think it's
a terrible idea.
Well, Len, I would love to hear why you think that. And then Destiny, what is your thoughts?
Why are you, what's the benefit to the economy? What's the benefit to the U.S. to not tax tips? What's the benefit?
I take a different approach. I worked in McDonald's and I hate tip workers. Screw you. Pay taxes on your tips.
Okay, so you guys both agree.
The thing is, here's the thing. If we've decided that an income tax is part of the way that we tax income, is part of the way that we gain, money for the federal government and the state governments, then you tax income. You don't pick, like, imagine somebody comes out and they're like, we think that lumberjacks are the most important people, so we're not going to tax anybody that cuts down trees. Like, why is stupid? Like, why would you not tax tips as income?
Next question, the $25,000 first-time home buyers that Kamal is talking about, you even referenced that this early on, Destiny, that you're not necessarily in favor of that. I see problems with it. I see it kind of could screw up demand, supply, and all. What are your guys' takes on the $25,000? And I also want to just point out that both Trump and Kamala are just trying to buy votes. They're trying to say all kinds of things, and will any of this stuff actually happen? I don't know.
Well,
but
also, as a quick thing, there's nothing wrong with buying votes. You're a politician. That's what you're supposed to do. Earn my vote, right? If it's going to be through tax cuts or through stimulus, fuck, I don't care. As long as I get money, I don't care. Personally, as a quick thing, some people view certain things that people should have, and they think that it's unethical to have a free market do these things because they're essential goods or services, right? Everybody should be guaranteed a house or food or whatever. I don't think that matters. What matters is what can markets solve for and what can markets not solve for. We don't have to give people free food and clothes because markets solve for food and clothing pretty well. Houses are solved for really well by the free market when they have the ability to create supply. The issue that you're running into right now is a physics problem, which is you're trying to take every single person in the country and have them live in 7 cities, and you're assuming that if we just give these people enough money, it'll be possible. You can't. It's not going to happen. You have to free up the ability for people to make houses, and how that happens is a whole other thing. But giving money to people is just going to make everything more expensive when it comes to housing, I think.
Tom, do you agree with that?
Well, I do think that, so one thing I would definitely agree with in Kamala's approach is I do like the idea of improving the low-income housing tax credit. That has proven over the years to work. I know it's confusing. It's a confusing credit. It's a very big credit. And what it does is...
Can you explain the credit?
It's almost as much as 70% of the cost to build is a credit over the lifetime of the building. Okay, so basically the entrepreneur who's building the housing actually basically pays 30% of it. The government pays 70% over time. Okay, it's not a one-time credit. It's complicated, but it has proven to work. And the private-public partnerships are very interesting. And that's what a low-income housing tax credit is. That's what, frankly, the solar energy credits are. That's what the intangible drilling cost deduction for oil and gas is. That's what business deductions are. These are all basically a partnership between the government and the entrepreneur. And so I like that kind of a partnership if we're going to have an income tax. Now, I'm not a huge fan of an income tax because that's a tax on production. I think there are better taxes. But we have an income tax. We're stuck with it. It's not going to change.
Tom, if you could change it, the income and no income tax, do you see a world where that would make sense?
Well, I mean, you mean I can wave a magic wand and eliminate?
Yeah, like if you were.
Yeah, I'd put in a value-added tax instead.
What is your thoughts on that, Destiny?
That's a whole. It's like asking me if like humans could be based on silicon instead of carbon.
It is just like that. Actually, it's just not. It's not politically possible.
I don't remember who said it. I'll just say Churchill said it because everybody gives every quote to him. It's like what Americans can sooner imagine like the end of the world than the end of capitalism or something. I can't even. I've heard people argue for VAT. I've heard people argue for a land value tax. I don't know what would be the best.
I've heard a consumption tax.
Well, that's a value-added tax. Is a consumption tax.
Well, yeah. I don't like consumption taxes as much because I'm a big believer in marginal utility. It's a lot easier for me to give up 10% of my income than for a poor person to give up 10% of their income. And I don't think that your consumption scales percentage-wise with the money that you make. So I feel like consumption taxes hurt. I think progressive income taxes are good, or some kind of progressive taxation is good because it hurts poor people more to pay taxes than wealthier people.
Trump just said that, no tax on overtime. Do you guys have the same belief as no tax on tips?
Terrible idea. What you get is manipulation. Now, think about this. Think about this, Caleb. Every one of your employees wants to be non-exempt because they want overtime, and they are going to be less efficient. There's nothing good in this. You can't not tax overtime. It's just a bad idea. It's like not taxing tips.
So, and Destiny, I would assume you would agree.
Yeah,
okay.
We have taxes.
So
if we want these taxes, we need to have the taxes. We need to not have if Trump comes out tomorrow and he's like, I'm not going to tax white cars, and Kamala's like, I'm not going to tax cars that are the colors of the rainbow. I was like, what are we going to tax them or not? All
right. So this is really, and we talked a little bit early on, but I think this is the real question: is one party literally we will pay less in taxes across the board. I know that maybe some people say that in Kamala's world you'll keep you could talk about that, Tom, but at the end of the day, under Trump's economy, we are going to pay less in taxes and versus pay more taxes under Kamala Harris's. Number one, do you agree with that statement that I just made? And number two, why is one better than the other? I think that really comes down. We agree on lots of things, and I just fundamentally lean towards I can do better with my money than the government. But maybe that's a libertarian conservative talking point, and I'm very open to hearing thoughts on this, especially from you, Destiny, because I would imagine you would disagree with that statement.
Do you want me to answer first, or?
Yeah, go ahead, Destiny. I'm real interested.
So this is what I would say. What you pay in taxes is only half of the question, and the other half is how much money did you make. Not exaggerating, I probably pay about 100 times, 2 orders of magnitude in taxes more now than I paid when I was a carpet cleaner. I much prefer my life now than when I cleaned carpet. It's not even close, okay? I think when I lived in California, my effective tax rate was climbing north of 40%. My life was way better then when my effective tax rate was almost zero when I was working before I streamed. So taxes are one part of the equation and income is another part. And that same equation blows up to the entirety of the economy, right? if there's an economy that has higher levels of taxation that produces an overall better welfare for its citizenry, that economy might be better than another economy that taxes people less but is overall smaller, right? If you tell me you're a top 1% earner in your country, I'm like, damn, that's awesome. And you're like, yeah, I'm from Somalia. It's like, not knocking Somalia, but like, okay, well, I mean, like, good job, I guess. Whereas, like, if you're in the United States, do we pay more taxes? Yeah, I do. But I wish that people would just kind of like keep in mind, like, when you pay taxes, like, for me to work in the United States, okay, I'm sitting in front of a camera and I am speaking to a lot of people and I make a lot of money doing it. I can only do that because people are willing to be janitors at electric power plants with materials that are, you know, brought into this country by guys working at harbors who are, you know, willing to drive trucks across the country and do all this miserable labor for 1/10, 1/20th, 1/50th of what somebody like me gets paid. The only way that I can do what I do at the top of this income chain is because of all the other people down the stairs from me. So, and the difference is that, like, if I break my leg, I can do a donation drive on my stream, go to the hospital, pay cash, and be fine. If a truck driver's daughter gets sick and he has to stay home from work, he might be facing financial ruin. So if you're going to come to somebody like me and say, Destiny, you got to pay an extra $20,000 in tax, man, to keep this shit working, I don't even have to think about it. I'm like, yeah, sure, obviously. I'm in one of the best countries in the world that lets me be the best version of myself, and the only reason I can do that is because of all the other people that are working to keep it going. So when you pay taxes, like, that's the system that you're building towards, and I wish people would keep that in mind a little bit when it comes to thinking of taxation rather than just the government stealing my money because they hate me.
And so I'm going to ask a question a different way. If it wasn't Trump, if it was like Kamala versus Kamala, but Kamala on one side was saying, hey, we're going to raise taxes versus no, like, would you, like...
This is the way that I look at it very simply. I don't attach normative value to taxes. If you're a billionaire, then fucking A, you're a billionaire. That's great. If you want to tax somebody a lot or a little, okay, whatever. At the end of the day, here's what I care about. This is what you want to spend. This is your spending. And this is how much you need to earn to spend it. So when it comes to figuring out what our tax rate should be, it's just like if you give somebody, if you guys do financial consulting, you know, if somebody comes to you and they say, fuck, man, I'm running out of money every month. The first thing that you tell them, you don't tell them you need to earn more money or you need to spend less. What you tell them is make a budget. What are you trying to spend money on? Figure out what our programs are that we need, and then once we figure that out, figure out the appropriate level of taxation and the best way to raise the money. So when you ask me right now, like, do I want more or less taxes? I don't know. I think about, like, right now it seems like we need more taxes because we've got a lot of spending. If there are spending programs that we can get rid of, or if there's spending we can decrease that won't have a massive negative outlay on our country or our citizenry, then we cut those programs. If there's not, then we need to tax more because I like living in the United States and I like the things that we offer here. And I think there's a reason why people like Elon Musk come to the U.S. to build things, and I want to maintain that. But yeah, that's what I would look at. I don't have like a normative value on like taxes are good or bad or spending is good or bad. Just like find out what we want to fund and then fund it. Yeah.
For some reason, I thought you were more progressive when it comes to like higher tax, but the way you answer that is something I respect, appreciate, and probably would give a very similar answer because I am not in favor of out of control spending, and it's a problem. No one wants to talk about it, and the problem with our financial system is no one's incentivized to talk about it.
Sure.
Which is
So, but just be careful Tom, when you talk about that out of control spending. Like people will say things like, because earlier we were talking about how much we love the low income credit for like housing and everything, right? I'm pretty sure this comes through HUD, like housing and urban development, and you're talking about Trump who wants to put people like Elon Musk in charge, who are probably going to look to slash those programs first. So I mean, what are you going to do? Yeah.
So I think it's a little more complicated than raising taxes or not. We by the way, historically, we have one of the lowest tax rates in the world, and we have one of the lowest tax rates we've ever had, if you look at everything combined. So the tax rates really are not exorbitant right now. Okay, could they become exorbitant? Yes, they could. And is that a slippery slope? Yes, it is. I'm more concerned about what's taxed and how we're taxed. Because, like I said, if you want to put a 5% surtax on everybody making over $10 million a year, I have no issue with that. Go for it. Nobody's going to care. They're not going to care. The people making more than $10 million, they're not going to care. They pay an extra 5%, no problem. I think they'd be just like Destiny. On the other hand, you raise the tax on investment on capital gains by 60%. That's challenging for me because any drag I'd like to see less drag. I'm a huge Art Laffer fan, as it turns out. I actually, Destiny, I know Art Laffer, and I'm a big fan of his work. I think you can put a very big drag on investment, okay, and it can drag down an economy, and reducing certain taxes can spur an economy. Now, can you reduce them to nothing? No. But for example, Trump's proposal to reduce the income tax, the corporate income tax on manufacturers from 21% to 15%, I think that's a good. I like that proposal. I like that one. That's actually reducing a very specific tax for manufacturers. It is encouraging manufacturers. I thought the corporate tax rate being reduced from 35% to 21% was excellent, because what I didn't like was the Democrats, the day after the day after the Democrats took power in 2023, they said, we're going to raise the tax rate back up on corporations, because what it does is it creates instability when it comes to the rest of the world. The rest of the world would like to see some stability, which I know is like an oxymoron in the U.S., stability in the U.S., right? We just have none. Okay, part of it's our election system. Part of it is just who we have and what's going on in the world. But my point is I think you do have to look at, both candidates have good policies and bad policies. Okay, I'm hopeful that there's enough negotiation in it that some of the good policies went out and the bad policies don't. Just like you're suggesting, Destiny, we don't have an unrealized capital gains tax. We don't have a tax on gifts. We don't have a 33% tax. I actually think that one probably would happen if the Democrats swept next week. I think we'd get that 33% tax rate on capital gains, and I think that would hurt. I think that would hurt. Would it be devastating? Not like Biden's proposal to raise it to 45%. Biden had proposed raising it to 45%. Harris said, no, we're going to raise it to 33%. Much more reasonable proposal. I still think I like capital gains rates low. I think taxes on investing are a bad idea in general, because I think that the more capital that people have for investing, the better off we are, because I like to see money go back into investment, not just into consumption.
Destiny, any final thoughts? I have one or two more questions, but I appreciate both your time. Any thoughts on where we've gotten so far tonight?
I mean, when I think about stability, I mean, I agree, but like I've made this complaint a few times. I wish in my lifetime, one Democrat got to come in without everything being completely destroyed and got to govern, and it was Bill Clinton, and we had budget surpluses. I think that's the last time we did. And then we had George W. Bush, who gave us Iraq. I'm not going to blame him for 9/11. I won't do that. I'll blame the Jews. No, I'm just kidding. So we had 9/11, and then we had the whole Middle East fiasco under Bush, which was a disaster. Then we had the 2007, 2008 housing collapse that was a worldwide financial catastrophe. And then after that, a Democrat has to come in, Obama, to come off the back of that horrendous thing, which was destroying the entire world economy. And you have you've got an ungovernable Republican Senate on top of that, right? Who's for 6 years. Again, McConnell was a disaster for Obama. Then after that, we get Trump for 4 years. Okay, Obama, we turn around the entire economy. We do TARP. The government makes money on getting the loans back. We do all this stuff, right? Obama turns things around. Since 2013 onward, we're posting all-time highs in the markets again. The economy is growing. Trump comes in, does even more deficit spending, adds more to the debt, and then we have the BLM riots, which we don't have to blame Trump for, but if it happened under a Democrat president, we'd blame the Democrat president. And then we had this horrible, in my opinion, mishandling of COVID, and it was mishandled so poorly for two reasons. I mean, like two things we can look at. One, Trump denied it even existed until there were like tens of thousands of cases here, and then two, even when Trump, the only thing I could give him credit for, like Warp Speed, most of his audience doesn't even like it because of how much he undermined our institutions while he was there. And then after COVID, now we bring in another Democrat president, Biden, who again, what do they say? Oh, and not to mention January 6th and all that. They always say, what's going to happen? 8 years of Obama is going to be communism. It didn't happen. We got the ACA that the Republicans hated. Trump comes in and he tries to destroy it. Now he wants to take credit for pre-existing conditions. Obama passes this in the midst of the 2007-2008 crisis, right? Biden comes in for 4 years. American Reinvestment Plan, American Recovery Plan. We've got the CHIPS Act. We're bringing manufacturing back. They're saying, well, look, the Democrats under Biden, who had to come in after Trump's disaster, are causing inflation. We're beating the rest of the world on inflation, and we have to come in after the disaster of COVID and Trump's denial of it even happening. And now Trump wants to take the reins again, and it's like, Jesus, I wish we could get a Democrat to come in and get to govern for 4 to 8 years without having to clean up the disaster of the last Republican president just to like clean the car and then hand the keys over to them again and say, please, like, bring this back in one piece again for our next turn in office, is just my feelings on it.
Yeah, but if you look back, the Democrats have been in power more than the Republicans the last 20 years.
Is that...
So it's like your talking points. It's like, really, I know Trump makes a splash, but it was Obama, Trump, Biden.
Wait, hold on. I could be wrong. I'm sorry. I suck. My brain is fried. Bush Jr. was 2 terms, right?
Right, and Clinton was 2 terms.
Yeah, so it was 8 years. I mean, I guess it depends on where we start. It was 8 years of Clinton. It was 8 years of Bush, and then it was 8 years of Obama. Then it was 4 years of Trump, and then it was 4 years of Biden. It seems like we've been pretty equal, right?
I mean, if you look at the last 16
years. No, there's
years.
8 more years of Democrats in there.
Well, it depends on where you want to start, right? Like,
yeah, it does. But if you start at Clinton, then yes, there would be 8 more years of Democrats. But of course, before Clinton, we had 4 years of Bush Sr. and we had 8 years of Reagan.
Yeah.
So in total, it comes out about even, Caleb. I mean, my lifetime, it's about even, Stephen.
Tom, I got a question.
Well, I'm just saying, wait, do we agree at least that, like, it seems like crazy disasters happen under Republicans, and then Democrats are brought in to govern next and have to.
I don't know about that. I mean,
what is your thoughts on the wars going on right now?
We had no wars under Trump, and we have big wars under Biden.
Wait, so to be clear, we had tons of wars under Trump, no?
No.
I mean, this is a good. No new wars started.
Hold on, wait. I don't know why new wars matters. Okay, so under Trump. We had drone strikes and bombing in Yemen that increased. We assassinated Soleimani in Iraq. We had Iran shooting rockets into Saudi Arabia. We had the whole border riots going on in Israel. We had conflict in Syria, right? We had the whole Kurdish abandonment in Syria that we dealt with. We had a raging war going on in the Donbass in southeast Ukraine, where Russia was still funding people to fight down there. They still owned Crimea. North Korea was still testing.
Wait, no. That was Obama.
Wait, no. The Donbass, the war.
Crimea was 2014. That was before Trump.
I'm aware, but Crimea was still occupied, and Russia was still fighting and funding fighters in the southeast of Ukraine all through Trump's term. That was still happening.
What Destiny's saying is Trump didn't get out, even though Biden actually got out of Afghanistan.
Trump ended one conflict, arguably, and that was by surrendering to the Taliban.
Do you think the Russia-Ukraine thing would be going on and the Israel deal would be going on if Trump was in office? I mean, this is one of his talking points. So
yeah, of course it would be. Yeah, of course.
So you don't believe Trump's telling the truth? If he gets elected, it'll be done before he gets in office.
I mean, Trump has literally said that he would just tell the Ukrainians to give up to Russia. And what's Trump going to do in Palestine? What would he even do?
Yeah,
I'm a tax guy, so not my nothing. I have a right to be literally. I just don't know enough.
Tom, someone asked in the chat. They said, "Are you less concerned about Trump getting in, essentially because the Senate's most likely going to go GOP? Like that's a check and balance. So you could make the argument that even if Harris wins the presidency,
I thought that in 2020, and I made a mistake.
Okay.
I didn't think that. Nobody thought the Democrats could sweep in 2020, and they did.
Yeah.
So do I think the Democrats can't sweep in 2024? No, I don't think that for a second.
If Destiny, if you had to give Kamala Harris a tips, or not, maybe tip is a bad word because no tax on tips,
Recommendation?
but like recommendations, is there anything like, what do you like about what she's talking about? What would you like? Should she be going on to Rogan?
She should
like,
just be making more personal attacks on Donald Trump. The Republicans have divorced themselves from reality. They don't talk policy anymore. Donald Trump is incredibly fragile. She should just say he has small hands and go from there. Tell her that Stormy Daniels, sent her a picture of his dick. It was small. Like, unironically, it should just be brutal personal attacks on Trump.
Really?
Yes. Because
Okay.
the Republicans have
Why do you think
abandoned
that-
all policy. It's a joke now. Like, we don't talk policy in the U.S. anymore because the Republicans have decided that they don't want to talk policy. Like, especially for you guys doing like finance and econ, I don't know how you could stomach listening to Donald Trump talk at that Bloomberg meeting. Like, my God, I didn't know that. Like, the question would be like, your child comes home and they get an F on their math test. What's your goal? And it's like, well, I'm going to increase tariffs on Saudi Arabia. Like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah,
it was an unbelievable conversation. And then people will say like Kamala stutters or doesn't speak well. And like, meanwhile, Donald Trump is just saying insane stuff constantly. And he's non-responsive to everything. I don't know. It's crazy to me.
I think, and I think you believe that Trump is going to get in and be the boss man. No one will be able to stand up to him. I don't necessarily see it that same way. And so it's not like, I don't love Donald Trump's personality, period. I don't think you could look to him and say, this is an amazing leader. This is what you want your kids to be like. Like, I think you can be critical there, but then you can also say like, hey, the people behind him and the policies behind him. And obviously we can agree to disagree on those things, but like, I just want to be real that there are some people that love Donald Trump's personality. I don't think anyone on this call would get in line and be like, wow, we love that. But I mean, I feel like this conversation has been really great. Tom,
I agree on the personality thing, but like, the problem is that if you like, I don't know if I believe that. I think people do like his personality, because let's say that you cared. Like, if I were to put myself, I grew up as a Republican. My mom is Cuban. Okay, I grew up very Republican. All right, I cried when they sent Elian back to Cuba. All right, okay. If I was a Republican and I hated deficits, I'm looking at this guy, Donald Trump. This guy came in as a businessman. Okay, he should be able to run a tight ship. The markets, if you guys are investors, right? When Trump was here, what was it, like 25% year over year for the first 3 years? It was insane. Why is he pressuring interest rates to remain so low? Why is he spending so much money if things like balancing the budget and everything are important? Like, this is just not the guy for budgets. It's not the guy for fiscal responsibility. And the fact that he says he wants to bring in somebody now to try to like cut government spending. Like, why didn't you do it when you were the leader, when the economy was going amazingly, right? When everybody was happy, when people were posting huge huge returns from the markets. I just don't see him coming in now when you've got like all this cumulative inflation and everything, right? The prices aren't going down. We're not deflating. That's never happening. So, and then, we say like, we don't like price controls, but they want to keep the $35 insulin. So I don't know, like, even if I was a fiscal conservative, Trump would not be the guy to get any of this done. I just don't see it ever happening. Like, yeah.
Well, I would agree. We do not have a fiscal conservative running for president right now. Period. We don't. We do not have a fiscal conservative running for president. We have 2 fiscal liberals running for president. I think that's absolutely true. Would I prefer fiscal conservative? Absolutely, 100%. That said, I prefer, if you're going to have a tax system, you're going to have an income tax system, and you're going to have incentives. That is part of the fabric of our country. Frankly, not just ours. Every developed country has tax incentives. That is, no politician's ever going to give up that power, which is the power to tax, right? They're not going to do that. That's why we're never going to get a flat tax, for example. We would never get that, because that would give up the power to tax. That's why we don't get a value-added tax. You lose all the power you have. If you're going to have the income tax, I still like, if you're going to incentivize, there does need to be a balance. You've got it. To me, the tax incentives, taxes should be, if they're going to incentivize, should incentivize things that improve the economy, improve the welfare long-term, not short-term, and don't put a drag on the economy. And the tax law is fundamentally, 6,000 to 7,000 pages. They're mostly incentives. Okay, that's what the tax law really is. And so then you basically choose your incentives. And all presidents use incentives. And the question is, what kind of incentives are we going to get out of Harris versus what kind of incentives are we going to get out of Trump? Interestingly enough, Harris likes the 2017 Tax Act if you make less than $400,000. She wants to maintain it.
And Tom, you've shared a couple times tonight on some things that you've liked about Kamala Harris's, credits and on new building. Destiny, is there anything that Trump did in his time with the economy and tax-wise that you would give him his flowers or said that he did a good job on?
The problem is that like even if there are things that I might have liked, they just happen incidentally because I don't think that Trump has a view of the economy, that's greater than like how a 6-year-old would envision things. I don't think like if you were to hold a gun to Trump's head and you were to ask him to explain the difference between like the budget deficit and the national debt and like a trade deficit, he wouldn't be able to explain those three things.
To be fair, though, Kamala would be in that same boat.
I absolutely disagree. Kamala is a million times more qualified. She's already won
You think?
several.
I just don't know if I would use that argument at all. Of like, I think both of them.
To be clear, it's not even questionable. Kamala is smarter than Donald Trump in almost every conceivable way related to government. She's been DA of San Francisco. She was Attorney General for California for 2 terms, and she was the Vice President for 4 terms in an administration that actually did stuff. Donald Trump was in office. He was a historic failure when it came to legislation. He ran on repeal and replace the ACA. He couldn't get it done. He got the tax cuts done. He did first step, which was okay. He was a miserable failure at the border. He ruled through executive action. He left the country in a horrible state, wrestling with COVID. There were BLM riots that raged on for a year. He couldn't get a handle on any of the civil situations. The lockdowns were historically unpopular. He couldn't organize any of the states or get the governors behind anything. He threatened to withhold FEMA aid from California because it would Trump was he was a horrible leader in every conceivable way. So it's hard to give him credit for everything. Like the only people that he even likes that he gives credits to, he's like, oh, well, Viktor Orban said nice things about me. I want people like Kim Jong-un. Putin is really nice to be like, damn, like, come on, man. Like, what about Trudeau?
So
what about the people that are right next to us? What about, I don't know.
Yeah. So should Kamala have gone on Joe Rogan? Could she because a lot of people are saying that she couldn't last. And why is she avoiding, do you wish she was out? You stream every day, it seems like, for you're out there. Why do you think they're not putting her out in front of a lot of media?
Didn't Donald Trump, hold on, just 2 questions. 1, Donald Trump dodged a second debate with Kamala, right?
Correct.
And then 2, Kamala did an interview on Fox News, right?
Correct. So
it doesn't compute to me that Donald Trump gets the standard of he's a brave guy because he goes on Joe Rogan. The Joe Rogan interview was such a glaze fest. He did that interview when I was in Texas, and I couldn't even watch it online because Texas has banned pornography, okay, from mobile phones. I couldn't even watch the interview. That's how much of a glaze fest the Joe Rogan Donald Trump interview. So the idea that because she didn't do Joe Rogan, that she's not being serious about, I don't know. I don't buy that. I just don't buy that.
Okay. Well, there's so many good things. Who's going to win on Tuesday? Predictions, and then we can wrap this thing up. Destiny, do you feel like Kamala's going to win?
I feel Kamala's going to win, but it's 55-45. It's almost a coin flip. I mean, who knows? I honestly,
you think it's gonna come down to Pennsylvania?
It could be a blowout either way. It could be a not Reagan tier, but it could be a huge landslide for either side. Who knows?
Tom, any predictions?
I actually would predict that one of the parties is going to sweep. I don't think we're going to have a mixed Senate and Congress.
Yeah. Okay. Destiny, thank you. I really appreciate you taking time.
Thanks, Destiny.
Yeah. And can I say also, I disagree with you so much, but I enjoyed getting to talk. It's fun to talk. I don't know how much you debate taxes or whatever, but talking to somebody who knows what a 1031 exchange is, or talking to somebody who knows what a marginal tax rate is, it's nice to be able to actually go through some of this stuff sometimes. Because Jesus, most tax stuff is absurdly stupid when talking to people. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And ironically, Destiny, if you need a good person to help you with your tax strategy, you're talking to one of the best in the world. So Tom, thank you for being here. I know that you don't necessarily do conversations like this all the time.
What? I love it. So I lived in France for a couple of years when I was younger.
Yeah, and people were saying that you were obsessed with France in the comments.
What I love about the French is they love a good argument because that's how you learn. And that's why I like a debate like this with Destiny, because I learned new things tonight. And I want to learn. I think you raise the consciousness of the world when you have people debating legitimately legitimately debating different views. I think it's awesome. So thank you, Caleb, for hosting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thank you guys both. Have an amazing night, and I'm sure this won't be the last time our paths cross. So take care, guys.
Thanks very much.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
a lot. Bye.
Yep. All right, Joel, should I stop?
I got it.
Am I good to exit the thing, or is it still
Yeah,
like
dude,
transferring?
Destiny, thank you, man. I really admire what you're up to, and it's fun. It was fun getting to meet you for the first time virtually. So thank you, man.
Cool. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, man.
All right, take care.
Bye. Meow. Oh, I feel like I get my way harsher on some of the differences, but whatever. I was happy enough to talk policy with a person for once in the 12 years that I've been a fucking streamer, so I'll take it, okay? I can't wait to see that guy call me a degenerate cuckold on Twitter in 6 hours, so. The Jew joke threw him off hard. Yeah, we gotta keep it edgy, okay? Getting a little boring there. I gotta get my daily anti-Semitism in. He mentioned that luck had a lot to do with the results from the Biden term with respect to inflation. Bro, yeah, that's just, it's a thing. Yeah. People will say like he's saying like, well, how did we not have like massive inflation? We got lucky. Like, wait, so he doesn't get credit for the things he actually did as president? But then people will be like, why is the stock market up? Well, because Trump said that he was going to win the election. I was like, wait, what? I don't know, man. I don't know. Where'd you learn about econ? Twitter. Just argue with people. I don't know, man. Okay. It's so frustrating that they can't actually engage with what Trump says. Yeah, I know. Yeah. They have to say that like he's not going to do anything or, yeah. Though it's constantly saying Kamala, not Kamala. Kamala's name wrong was cringe. Yeah, but you know what? I watched. You know what? Fuck me, dude. Trump won. Trump won that battle because I was watching some. It was a YouTube video with something. It was some mainstream media thing, and it was a bunch of Democrats talking, and half of them were saying her name wrong too. They were saying Kamala. So now I don't even know if it's a fucking racist dog whistle or if it's just like now Trump has like fucked everybody's mind so hard. I don't know, but. Thoughts on dropping these vibe nukes at the end? The porn ban hit hard. That was a good one. The porn ban, I couldn't even watch it in Texas because it counted as a glaze fest. That was a good one. Dan is crying. What? Okay. How do you think we're going to get out of the deficit hole? Just raise more taxes and cut spending? I mean, growing the economy helps as well, right? You seem worn down? Oh, I'm just tired. I've been doing a lot. I thought about for 1 week, like writing down everything I do for a week, because people say I don't do anything. It triggers me. But I figured, I actually now feel like it's just a waste of time. But I got like 4 hours of sleep, so fuck it. I feel like that was the perfect opportunity to end that call off the record but still streaming and just say, look, I spent months looking into the Lecter plot and I think it's really bad. These guys both sound in good faith. Maybe. Okay. I'm going to sleep. Or doing stuff. Brian Tyler Cohen YouTube chat. Fuck, how do I look at YouTube chat? Oh, did you guys know he's coming to the election stream, guys? We're so excited to see him here in 3 days. He promised he would be here. My sister's dying of cancer, and she wanted to see you too. So they pulled the plug on her on November 6th. So we're so just kidding. How was Jubilee? Jubilee was so much fun. Always fun fighting with conservatives. You should do a deep dive on the JS system. Someone mentioned earlier it's where data is pushed from most things. Okay, maybe. You got a bet on Polymarket? I don't even know how to sign up for it. Why are they giving you the fucking final oral exam just to nitpick if you're... I don't know. I feel like people sometimes when you learn a niche, I'm accusing bad faith. That's not nice. But like, the feeling I get sometimes is the goal is that like, I'm just going to ask this guy some like esoteric questions on policy or taxes or business corporate structure. And then like, if I know the answer and I answer, they just move on to the next thing. But if I didn't know, they probably would have tried to hammer a point there, like capitalizing on the fact that I'm just not familiar with the thing that they're bringing up. But sometimes I'm a little bit too willing to jump through hoops, and I should probably be staking out positions instead of just like passing their quizzes and then not doing anything with it maybe, but I don't know. You heard, but your response is stronger, adamant, and correct. It's a hard one because to get people... The problem is there's no way to do it without by a roll of Duvtine. There's no way to be more firm without making people more uncomfortable. Like I could have asked for credit at the end of a lot of my answers, but it would be very uncomfortable. Where if I'd be like, hold on, you said that there were no new wars. I just explained why that was such a dumb comment, and now you're pivoting. Can you acknowledge that your comment was dumb, and I actually gave a good... Like, for me to say that, and I could say that in a gentler way, but it's always going to be really awkward because I'm causing a really large confrontation. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. But... Divutine. What is this? Duvtine. Damn, bro. This shit is hella expensive. What is, can I cut a hole in it to put it here? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'll get some, maybe not. It'd be nice to get rid of the glare on this table, though, and the knocking noises. Although I put I did a high-pass filter on the mic, so hopefully there's not as much like bumping shit because somebody mentioned that. But all right, I'm going to sleep. Destiny, did you see the Piers Morgan episode from yesterday? No, why were you on it? I haven't had time to watch anything. I've been running around the studio, unplugging and plugging in shit so that my stream is ready for election night. What do you guys do? Do you guys have like a big election stream, or what do you guys do in the mainstream, in the big boy YouTube world? Is Canute coming on election night? Nope. Yeah, they put me with this girl who used to be at ESPN, Sage Steele. VTubers based. All right. Yeah. I love you guys. It's been fun. Stay safe. Repuno, cappuccino, poppuccino, hoppuccino, moppuccino, cappuccino, cappuccino, appuccino, alpuccino, my deuterinos. If debate's ever boring, always remember to make a porn joke or a Jew joke. That's what George Soros would want. Stay safe, my duders. Imagine if there was a way to turn my stream off from this app. I know there is. You're going to sit here while I figure it the fuck out. Oh, I bet it's right here.